There is a woman in this story that the entire world had decided not to see. Not because she wasn't there. She was there every single night, pouring the coffee, wiping the counter, limping quietly between the booths of a roadside diner on the cold edge of Chicago. She was there in her long sleeves in the middle of summer. She was there with her head down and her name tag reading a name that wasn't hers. She was there, and somehow to everyone who looked at her she was nothing at all. Furniture, scenery, the hand that brought the food and took it away. For 2 years, that invisibility was the only thing keeping her alive. Because somewhere out there in the rain, a man with a badge and a black sedan was hunting her. A man no one would ever believe she was running from. A man who had taught her one cruel, unforgettable lesson, that if you keep your head down low enough, the world will simply stop looking at you. And she had learned it so well that she had nearly disappeared completely, until one storm-soaked night a different kind of dangerous man walked into her diner. A man the whole city feared. A man with winter in his eyes and 3 years of buried grief in his chest. And he did the one thing no one had done for her in 2 years. He looked. He saw the limp she'd hidden. He saw the long sleeves in July. He saw the way she counted the exits, the way she flinched at the door. And on the worst night of that storm, when she went down in the freezing black water of a parking lot, with a corrupt cop's headlights pinning her where she knelt, the pet most feared man in Chicago did not stand over her. He got down into the gutter with her. He knelt in the puddle until his eyes were level with hers. And he asked her the question that would set fire to both their lives. Who did this to you? So before we begin, settle in. Turn the lights down. This is a long one, and it earns every minute. Over the next 2 hours, you're going to watch a woman the world threw away become the most dangerous person in the room. You're going to watch a man who burns the world for a living learn that there's one thing he won't burn and one woman he'd rather set free than possess. There will be a betrayal you don't see coming. There will be a trap built by the very woman everyone underestimated. And there will be a reckoning in the daylight for every person who decided she wasn't worth seeing. If stories about overlooked women and the dangerous men who finally see them are why you're here, you're in exactly the right place. Stay until the end. The ending is the whole point. This is The Night Shift Waitress. Act 1, the woman nobody saw. Rain came down on Chicago like it had a grudge. It hammered the tin roof of the Blue Hour diner, ran in long silver sheets down the windows, and turned the parking lot into a black mirror that swallowed the streetlights whole. Inside, under buzzing fluorescent tubes and the low static of an old radio playing songs nobody requested anymore, a woman moved between the booths the way water moves around. Stones quiet, careful, never touched. Her name tag said Kara. It was not her name. She had learned to be invisible the way other people learned to drive. It was muscle memory now, a thing her body did without asking permission. Keep the eyes down, keep the voice flat, refill the coffee before they ask. Never give anyone a reason to remember your face. She wore long sleeves in July. She left through the kitchen door, not the front. She parked her dented Corolla 3 blocks away and walked even in the rain. Because a license plate seen too often becomes a thing people talk about, and a thing people talk about becomes a thread, and a thread is how they pull you back. The regulars at the Blue Hour did not know her. They only thought they did. The trucker who came in at 2 for eggs called her sweetheart, and had never once looked at her face long enough to describe it. The night clerk from the gas station tipped in dimes and talked at her about a baseball team like she was a wall that agreed with him. To all of them, she was the woman who brought the food, the woman who wasn't worth a second glance. That was exactly how she wanted it, because she had learned in the hardest way a person can learn anything that the moment a man looked at her twice, the math in her head started running. Does he know? Has he been sent? Is tonight the night it ends? She had become fluent in a language of small terrors, the second glance, the slow car, the phone held a beat too long. She read the world for threat the way other people read it for weather. 3 cities, 4 names. 2 years of sleeping with a chair wedged under the door handle and her shoes already on. She had become an expert in the cold geometry of escape, which seats faced the exits, which streets had cameras, how many seconds it took to abandon an entire life and start a new one from a duffel bag and $400 folded into the lining of a coat. She told herself she was good at this now. She told herself the system she had built was airtight, that she had finally gotten far enough, small enough, quiet enough. She was wrong. And some animal part of her, the part that never fully slept, had known it for days. There is a particular loneliness in being unseen on purpose. It is a thing she could never have explained to anyone because explaining it would have required being seen. She watered it down into the smallest possible life. She did not have friends, because a friend is a person who asks questions. She did not have routines a person could predict except the ones the job forced on her. She did not let herself want anything, because wanting is how they find the soft place to push. She had taken a woman who used to laugh too loud at her own jokes, who used to be good at something, who used to walk into a room and fill it, and she had folded that woman down smaller and smaller until she fit inside a name tag that wasn't even hers. And on the worst nights, lying in the dark with the chair under the handle, she would catch herself wondering whether she was even still in there, whether 2 years of disappearing had actually made her disappear, whether if someone finally did look, there would be anyone left behind her eyes to look back. She was about to find out. Act 2: The Man Who Counts Exits. The man came in at 1140 on a Tuesday, and the diner changed temperature. Kara felt him before she saw him, a shift in the room the way the air changes its mind before lightning. The trucker stopped chewing. The line cook, a sweet-faced kid named Marcus who hummed old gospel songs under his breath while he worked the grill, went quiet mid-hum. Even the radio seemed to drop a register. He was tall, dressed in black. That wasn't trying to be expensive, but unmistakably was. And he carried the kind of stillness that doesn't come from peace. It comes from control. From a man who has learned over a long and dangerous life that the less he moves, the more the world holds its breath and watches. Rainwater ran off the shoulders of his coat, and he didn't seem to register it. The way some men stop registering rain because they have stopped registering anything that cannot actually hurt them. He took the booth by the window, the bad one with the cracked vinyl that pinched. He took it, Kara understood, in a slow, cold trickle because it faced the door and the parking lot, both because from that seat a man could watch every way in and every way out. And she noticed that he noticed those things. And a thin wire of ice pulled tight low in her stomach. He's like me, she thought before she could stop the thought. He counts exits too. She brought him a menu she already knew he wouldn't open. Coffee, he said. Just the one word. His voice was low, and even the voice of a man who had never once in his life needed to raise it, because raising your voice is what you do when you're afraid you won't be obeyed. She poured. Her hand was steady. She had spent 2 years training it to be steady, but when she set the cup down, he was looking at her. Not through her the way the others did. At her. Directly. And for one disorienting second, she felt the way a deer must feel in the half-instant before it understands that the shape standing in the trees is not part of the trees. She left fast. She did not return to his table for 20 minutes, and when she finally did, he had not touched the coffee. He was watching the door. "You want anything else?" she said. It wasn't a question. It was a wall built quickly out of habit. He looked up. Grey eyes the exact color of the lake in February. "You're limping," he said. The plates on her tray did not rattle, but only because she had a lifetime of practice keeping things from rattling. "Floor's slick," she said. "It's been slick for 3 nights then." The wire of ice became a blade. 3 nights. He had been here 3 nights. She had not seen him. She who saw everything, who had built her entire survival on the foundation of seeing everything first, had not seen him 3 nights running. And in those 3 unseen nights, he had watched her closely enough to clock a limp she worked very hard to hide. "You sit where you can see the whole room," he went on, conversational, as if they were discussing nothing more than the rain. "You leave through the kitchen. You parked your car somewhere, I can't see it from this window. You flinch when the door chimes, but only when it chimes twice in a row, which tells me you're not afraid of just anyone walking in. You're waiting for one specific man." He laid a 20 on the table for a coffee he hadn't drunk. "I'm not him. I want you to know that. Whatever else I am, I'm not him." And then he stood and settled a hat against the storm and walked out into the rain, leaving her standing in the middle of her own diner with a coffee pot in her hand, and her heart slamming so hard she was certain he could hear it from the parking lot. She did not sleep that night. She sat in the dark of her rented room with the chair under the door handle and her mind sprinting in tight, frightened circles. And she understood with the precision of a person who had once in another life been very, very good at understanding things that her invisibility had just been read straight through by a stranger in a black coat. The one thing that kept her alive had failed. And it had failed in front of someone she didn't know how to file. What she did not yet understand was that it was the first time in 2 years that anyone had looked at her and seen her. Not a target, not a victim, not a job to be completed, just a woman in a pain that no one else had bothered to notice. He came back. Of course he came back. For 4 nights he sat in the bad booth, drank exactly 1 cup of coffee, left at 20 and watched the door. He never asked her name. He never asked her anything at all. He simply was there, a fixed point of dangerous stillness in a diner full of moving parts. And against every instinct she had spent 2 years sharpening into a survival reflex, Kara found the ice in her stomach, beginning slowly and terrifyingly to thaw into something warmer and far more dangerous than fear. Because when he was there, the door would chime, and her heart would not lurch the way it always did. She hated that. She hated that some part of her body, some traitor cell she could not interrogate, had quietly decided that the most dangerous man in the room was the safest place in it to stand. It made no sense. It violated every rule she lived by. And still, on the 5th night, when he didn't come at his usual hour, she caught herself watching the door for him and felt the absence of a stranger like a draft through a cracked window, and was furious with herself for it. That was the night the storm came back worse than before. That was the night everything broke open. Act 3, who did this to you? The blue hour closed at 1. Marcus left at 12:30, splashing out to his cousin's idling car with a wave and a night. Kara, she returned without looking up. The trucker had gone. The man in black had come and gone earlier than usual, and she had felt the goneness of him all evening like a missing tooth her tongue kept finding. She locked up. She counted her tips in the dark by the glow of the register, $19 and a fist of loose change, a whole night of being invisible reduced to coins. She pulled her thin coat tight, killed the last of the lights, so that only the red neon of the blue hour sign still burned, throwing its long, bloody reflection across the wet asphalt, and she stepped out the kitchen door into the storm. The parking lot was a single black sheet of standing water, 3 blocks to the car. She put her head down the way she always did and started across. She heard the engine before she saw the lights, not the SUV that came after. First, there was a sedan, headlights off, rolling slow and patient along the far edge of the lot with its tires hissing through the standing water. And every cell in Kara's body screamed the thing it had been screaming in the background for 2 years straight. He found you. She knew the shape of that car. She knew the particular way it moved, slow, certain, in no hurry whatsoever, and that unhurried certainty told her everything, because that was exactly how Ray drove when he had already decided. When the decision was made and all that remained was the doing of it. Ray, who wore a badge. Ray, who had a key to every door in this city, and a believable story for every bruise. Detective Raymond Corsack had finally caught up to her. Kara ran. Or she tried. Her bad knee, the one he'd put a stairwell's worth of damage into on the last night she ever spent under his roof, buckled in the wet, and she went down hard into the freezing black water, the heels of her hands shredding on the hidden asphalt. The sedan's headlights snapped on white and merciless, pinning her exactly where she knelt like a moth on a board. She heard the car door open. She heard the unhurried scrape of a shoe on wet pavement, and 2 years of running compressed down into a single, endless second in which she understood with a strange and final calm that this was the place it ended. A parking lot in the rain. $19 and a handful of change in her pocket. No one who even knew her real name left in the world to wonder where she'd gone. And that was when the second engine roared. A black SUV came across the lot fast and hard, throwing up a wall of spray and gudder. Gudder. Its own headlights died to a stop between Kara and the sedan, between her and those white lights, like a body hurled in front of a bullet. Its own headlights died. For one suspended heartbeat, the whole world was nothing but rain and red, neon, and the cold mineral smell of wet stone. Then the SUV's door opened, and the man in black stepped out into the storm. He didn't run. He didn't shout. He didn't reach for anything. He simply walked that same impossible, unhurried stillness, the rain instantly flattening his hair, his coat soaked dark in seconds, and he walked not toward the sedan, not toward the threat, but toward her. And there in front of God, and the storm, and a corrupt cop, with murder idling in his car, the most feared man in Chicago lowered himself down into the freezing black water of the parking lot and knelt in the puddle beside her, so that his winter-gray eyes were level with her own. "Who did this to you?" he said, low, even. But beneath the calm of it, there was something that had cracked clean, opened some old grief, some old patient rage, moving like a fast current under river ice. And Kara, kneeling in the rain with her palms bleeding and her ruined knee screaming, and 2 years of held breath crushing her chest, looked into the eyes of a man she did not know, and felt all of that held breath leave her body at once in a pound, single shudder like a soul deciding whether to stay. She didn't answer. She couldn't, but she didn't have to, because behind them the sedan's door slammed its tires, shrieked against the wet, and it fled into the storm. The driver had recognized the SUV. The driver had recognized the man kneeling in the rain. And a corrupt cop who feared nothing in this city had taken one long look at Dominic Vance and decided that tonight was not after all going to be the night. Dominic watched the red taillights smear away into the dark. Then he turned back to her, and very slowly, the way a person approaches something wounded that might still bite, he held out his hand, palm up open, unhurried. "You're hurt," he said. "Let me get you out of the rain. That's all. Just out of the rain. You can decide everything else later." And Kara, who trusted no one, who had built her entire fragile life on the single iron principle of trusting no one ever again, looked at that open, scarred, waiting hand and put her bleeding palm into it. Act 4. The stone house by the Black Lake. The safe house sat 40 minutes north of the city past, where the streetlights thinned out and finally gave up entirely out where the lake threw itself against a black coastline in the dark. It was a low stone house behind a high wall with no name on the gate and no neighbor close enough to hear anything that might happen inside it. And Kara understood, as they drove through the storm in silence, that she had just traded one kind of danger for another entirely, and could not for the life of her make herself care. He gave her dry clothes, far too big a man's heavy grey sweater that smelled like cedar and rain, and something darker underneath, and a first aid kit, and the use of a bathroom with a lock she tested twice before she trusted it. When she came out, he had built a fire and was sitting in a chair on the far side of the room, as far from her as the room would physically allow, his hands open and visible on his knees. He had read her completely. He knew without being told exactly how much space a woman like her needed in order to breathe, and he had given her every inch of it, and then a few inches more. "You won't tell me your name," he said. Not a question. A simple observation set gently on the table between them. "Kara. That's the name on the tag." He said it without accusation, without weight. "It isn't the one your mother gave you." She said nothing. The fire popped and threw shadows up the stone. "All right," he said after a while. "Kara then. For now, Kara is fine. I'm Dominic." He let that sit in the warm air. "You already know who I am. Everyone knows who you are." Her voice came out steadier than she felt, which was its own small victory. "I serve coffee 3 blocks from your territory. I'd have to be an idiot not to know the name Vance." Something moved at the corner of his mouth, not a smile, but the memory of where one used to live. "And yet you got in the car with me, because the man in the other car was worse." She held his gaze across the fire. "I'm very good, Mr. Vance, at ranking the things that can kill me. It's the one skill I have left." He didn't laugh, but something behind his eyes acknowledged the hit. He let the silence stretch, and she realized he was waiting, not pushing, not demanding, just leaving a door open and declining to walk through it himself. She told him about the bleeding instead. Made him hold gauze to the heel of her hand while she taped it, made the whole exchange transactional and small and survivable. He didn't push, and that the not pushing undid her more thoroughly than any tenderness could have, because every single man she had ever known had pushed, had needed to know, had treated her pain as a debt. She owed them a thing they were entitled to collect and examine and eventually use. Dominic Vance just sat across the room with his open hands and his terrible, bottomless patience and waited. And somewhere around 3 in the morning, with the fire low and the rain steady, and the chair for once not wedged under any door, Kara heard herself begin to talk. His name was Ray, Detective Raymond Corsack. They had met when she was 24, and clever in the way that makes you stupid, flattered by a man with a badge who seemed to know how to make the entire world feel safe. It had taken him 4 months to move into her apartment, and 6 to put his hand around her throat the first time, and by then he had already done what men like him always do. He had quietly, methodically made himself the wall between her and every single exit. He knew which judges she could go to and which ones owed him. He knew which of her friends would believe his calm, sad, reasonable version over her shaking one. He had a folder, he had told her once, almost gently, of things that would happen to people she loved if she ever made him angry enough to open it. And he was a cop. "Who do you call?" she said to Dominic. And her voice finally went thin. "When the man hurting you is the man they send when you call for help." "You ran," Dominic said. "The 3rd time he nearly killed me. I've been running ever since." She looked down at her bandaged hands in the firelight. 2 years. New name, new city, cash only, no friends, no trail. And every single time 6 months in, I look up and I see his car. He has the whole machine, Dominic. Plates, databases, favors men who owe him. I'm one woman with $400 and a chair. I'm tired. She said it without drama, which made it worse. I am so tired of running from a man no one will ever believe I'm running from. For a long time, Dominic did not speak. When he finally did, his voice had gone very quiet and very cold, and Kara understood that the sudden drop in temperature in the room had nothing at all to do with the fire. "You're not running anymore," he said. "You can't just. I know exactly what Raymond Corsac is." He rose, crossed to the dark window, and looked out at the black water beating itself against the rocks. "I've known his name for 3 years. He is a single thread in something I have been carefully, patiently pulling apart for a very long time." A pause heavy as a held breath. "I didn't come to your diner by accident, Kara. Something I was already watching led me there. I didn't know about you. I didn't know there was a woman, or that the thread had a face, or that he stopped." The word yours hung unsaid in the air, ugly and possessive, and to his credit he did not let himself say it. "I'll deal with Corsac." "No." She was on her feet before she'd decided to be ignoring the white flare of pain in her knee. "No, you don't deal with him. You don't know him. He isn't a man you walk up to in a parking lot. He's careful, and he's connected, and he's smart. And if you come at him like he's just another thug with a gun, he will bury you both under 20 years of being a decorated officer of the law and walk away clean with his pension and his commendations." Her chest was heaving. "I have spent 2 years learning the inside of that man's head. I know how Ray thinks. You know how to break a man. I know how to break this man." "Those are not the same thing." Dominic turned from the window, and the look on his face was not anger. It was something far more dangerous to her hard-won composure. It was recognition. He was looking at her the way you look at a person who has just revealed themselves to be precisely as sharp as you'd begun to suspect, and somehow sharper. "Then teach me," he said. Act 5. The grief under the ice. She stayed at the stone house, not because he made her do nothing that was the maddening, disarming heart of the whole thing, but because for the first time in 2 years, she slept all the way through a night without a chair under the handle and her shoes on. And when she woke, and the world had not ended something in her that had been clenched for 2 straight years, let go just slightly, and she could not bring herself to leave the place where that had happened. The days took on a shape. Dominic was gone. For most of them conducting whatever business made grown men cross the street to avoid the sound of his name. But he was never gone long, and he always returned the same careful way, a soft double knock at the outer door, so she'd know it was him. Before the lock turned, a hand kept, visible, a habit of announcing himself at the threshold of any room she was already in. He had learned somewhere, somehow, exactly how to be enormous and lethal and unfrightening all at the same time. And Kara lay awake at night, turning that knowledge over like a smooth, dark stone, wondering who had taught it to him, wondering more than she wanted to who he had first learned to be that careful for, because there was a grief in him. She caught it in pieces the way you catch the shape of a thing underwater. A single photograph on a high shelf always turned face down. A name he started to say into the phone late one night, and then didn't finish. A particular silence that came over him whenever they were near the water, a stillness inside the stillness, a man standing at the edge of something he never spoke about. Who was she? Kara finally asked one night when a shared bottle of wine had made them both more honest than was wise. She nodded toward the face-down frame on the shelf. Dominic was quiet for a long time. The fire moved in his eyes. "My sister," he said at last. "Elena." He turned the glass slowly in his scarred hand. 3 years ago, she got close to something she should never have touched. People I do business with, people I fight, they all swore to me it wasn't them. And the strange thing, the thing that kept me up for a year, is that I believed every one of them. Because it wasn't a war that killed Elena. Wars, I understand. Wars I'm good at. This was something else. Somebody made her death look like an overdose. Somebody with access to the medical examiner's office. Somebody who could reach inside the machine that's supposed to find the truth and quietly rewrite it. His jaw tightened until the muscles stood out. Somebody with a badge. The room went very still. The lake breathed against the rocks outside. Ray, Kara whispered. Not only Ray, a network. He set the glass down with great care, as if it might shatter from the weight of what he was saying. Cops. A man or two in the prosecutor's office. People who took the machine that's supposed to protect the powerless and turned it into a machine that hides bodies and ruins witnesses and makes inconvenient women disappear into overdoses and accidents and suicide. Corsac is in it. I've been certain of that for a year, but I could never touch him. Every time I get close, the evidence evaporates. Witnesses change their stories overnight. Files are misplaced. He hides behind the exact same machine that's been hunting you across 3 cities. The badge, the system, the unassailable decorated believed by everyone's surface of a man no jury would ever doubt. He looked at her. He hides behind the same thing that's kept you from ever calling for help. You and I have been standing at opposite ends of the same wound for 2 years. Kara, and we never knew it, and there it was. The thing that turned 2 strangers in a stone house into something neither of them had words for yet. The man who had carved a hole in each of their lives was the same man. Her monster and his were one creature wearing one badge, hiding behind one untouchable smile. He documents everything she said slowly, and she felt the old machinery in her mind, the part she had buried under a downturned head for 2 years, begin to wake up, gears catching, turning, running. That's how he controls people. The folder. He told me there was a folder, and I always thought it was just a threat, a thing he said to keep me small. But Dominic Ray is not a man who bluffs. If he told me there's a folder, there is a folder. He keeps records, insurance, on everyone he's ever touched. It's how a careful man sleeps at night. Dominic went absolutely motionless. If that's true, then somewhere there is a file that proves what he did to your sister, in his own handwriting. In his own careful, arrogant, untouchable hand. She lifted her eyes to his, and for the first time in 2 years, there was something in her face that was not fear. It was the cold, clean, electric clarity of a woman who has finally stopped running and started hunting. Because a man like Ray never destroys his own leverage. Never. His secrets are the only thing that make him safe. I was a forensic accountant, Dominic. Before Ray. Before any of it. Finding the exact thing that powerful, careful people think they've hidden forever, that was my entire job. That was what I was good at, before I made myself good at disappearing instead. The fire crackled. Far off, the lake threw itself against the black rocks again and again, patient and tireless. You said you'd deal with him, Kara said. Don't. Let me. I know where a man like Ray keeps his secrets. Because for 2 years I have been the secret he couldn't keep buried. We don't kill Raymond Corsac. Killing him just makes him a tragedy, a fallen hero, a closed file. We expose him. We take the machine he hides behind, and we turn it into the thing that crushes him in the daylight in front of everyone who ever believed him. And I know better than anyone alive exactly how to do it. And Dominic Vance, who had spent 3 years and a fortune and a piece of his own soul failing to lay a single finger on the man who murdered his sister, looked at the overlooked woman in the too big sweater sitting in his firelight, with 2 years of buried brilliance suddenly burning behind her eyes, and felt for the first time since the night they told him Elena was gone, the thing he had been certain he'd lost forever, hope, and underneath the hope, gathering quietly like a current beneath the ice, something he had even less defense against, something he would not name for a long time yet, because naming it would mean admitting how much he now had to lose. ACT 6. Dangerous proximity. The plan took shape over a kitchen table at 3 in the morning across a week of long nights. And it was Kara's plan from the very first line to the last. She knew Ray's habits the way you know a language you were forced under threat to learn. She knew he kept his real records off any city system, far too smart for that, which meant physical files, which meant a place he controlled absolutely and shared with no one. She knew he had a cabin near the Indiana line that wasn't in his name, that he visited alone, that he'd once let slip in one of his expansive, self-satisfied moods, kept the important things. She knew the precise way he would come for her, not loud, not fast, but patient and certain, entirely on his own terms, the way a man approaches something he is sure already belongs to him, which meant the only way to beat a patient man was to offer him exactly the impatient, irresistible mistake he had been waiting 2 years to be handed on a stage that she had built board by board with every exit measured. You want to be bait, Dominic said. His hands were flat on the table and his knuckles had gone pale. I want to be a trap, Kara corrected quietly. There's a difference, and the difference is the whole thing. Bait doesn't get to choose the ground. A trap is nothing but the ground. I'm choosing where this happens and when and how he comes in and how he doesn't go out. That's not the same as offering myself up. That's the opposite of it. No, Dominic, no. And there it was, the first real crack in his iron control, the first time she watched the famous stillness break, and the force of what was underneath it filled the whole room like a change in pressure. He stood so fast the chair shrieked across the stone. Do you understand what he is? You told me yourself. He nearly killed you 3 separate times. I am not going to dangle you in front of that man. And hope, you're not dangling me. I'm dangling me. That's the entire point, and you're so afraid you can't hear it. She stood too, refusing him a single inch, tipping her head all the way back to keep his eyes because he was so much taller, and she would not look away. For 2 years I have been the thing that gets hunted, the thing that gets caught, the thing that gets hurt and then saved by absolutely no one because there was no one. For 2 years, Dominic. And now the only time I have a chance to stop being the rabbit and become the thing waiting in the grass. And you want to lock me inside a beautiful stone house and handle it for me. Her voice finally cracked straight down the middle, and she let him see it. Don't take this from me. Everyone else already took everything else. Don't you be the last one. Don't be the kind man who finishes what the cruel one started by deciding what I'm allowed to do with my own life. The fire popped. The rain ran in long ribbons down the black glass, and something in Dominic Vance's face came completely apart and then reassembled itself into something raw and unguarded and almost frightened. The expression of a man discovering in real time and against his will that he has begun to care desperately whether another human being lives or dies. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat coming off him, close enough that his hand rose between them and stopped an inch from her face, visibly trembling with the sheer effort of not closing that final inch. "If anything happens to you," he said, very low, the words scraped out of somewhere deep and damaged, "I will burn this entire city down to the waterline. Do you understand me? I have done it before. I will do it again, and worse, and I will not care who's still standing inside it when it goes. But here is the thing you need to understand about me, Kara. I did not survive doing it the first time. Not really. The man who did that is mostly ash. There isn't enough of me left to do it a second time and still be a person afterward." His hand hovered, shaking. "So don't ask me to be calm about this. Ask me for anything else in the world. Not this." Kara reached up. She closed the last inch his hand wouldn't. She pressed his open palm flat against her own cheek, the first time in 2 full years that she had voluntarily, deliberately reached out and touched a man, and she felt him go utterly, completely still. Felt the breath leave his body as though she had struck him over the heart. "Then help me win," she said softly, holding his hand against her face. "Don't lock me away to keep me safe. Help me make myself safe once for good, forever. And nothing will happen to me because I won't be doing it alone in the dark the way I've done everything for 2 years. I'll be doing it with you. That's the part that's new. That's the part that's different. I finally have someone standing in the grass with me." He pulled her in slowly, achingly slowly, giving her every possible second to stop him, to pull back, to wedge a chair between them. And she did not stop him. His forehead came down and rested against hers, 2 hunted people breathing the same warm air in a stone house at the edge of a black lake, and neither of them said the word that was filling the room to the rafters. They didn't have to. The almost of it was louder than any confession could ever be. He did not kiss her. He was too careful, too aware of every single thing she had survived to get to this room to simply take that for himself. He just held her face in his scarred, deadly hands as though it were the only fragile thing in a life otherwise built entirely out of unbreakable ones. And Kara understood with a strange peace that she had walked out of one fire and directly into another, but that this one, for the first time in her life, she had walked into with her eyes wide open and on her own 2 feet, and that made it not a trap at all. That made it a choice, and she had forgotten until that exact moment that she was still allowed to make those. Act 7. The pressure turns. If the plan had a flaw, it was time. And Ray, sensing the way predators sense that his prey had finally gone still somewhere, began to apply pressure to the city in a way Kara had not anticipated. It started small and deniable. A health inspector arrived at the Blue Hour unannounced and wrote up violations that did not exist. A man Kara had never seen sat in the corner booth for 3 hours nursing a single coffee and photographing the staff with a phone held a beat too long. The diner's elderly owner got a visit from the city about a licensing problem that materialized out of nowhere, and it was gently suggested, go away if certain questions about a certain employee were answered honestly. Ray was doing what Ray did best. He was tightening the machine. He couldn't find Kara's new bolt hole. Dominic's stone house didn't exist on any record he could pull, so he was squeezing every place she might have to surface, every person she might have to protect, turning her own small, invisible life into a noose. He could slowly draw, closed until she had no choice but to step into the light to save someone else. He's not hunting me anymore, Kara realized, standing at the window of the stone house with a burner phone full of frightened texts from the diner. He's hunting everyone near the place I used to be. He's making it so expensive for other people that I have to come out to stop it. That's classic Ray. He never corners you directly. He poisons the ground around you until you walk into the open on your own. Then we move faster than he can squeeze, Dominic said. The dangerous stillness had come over him completely. Give me names. Anyone he's leaning on. I'll have people on every one of them by morning, quiet, protective, nothing he can see. He wants to make your world expensive. I can make it free, and he did. That was the night Kara first watched up close what Dominic Vance actually was, not the violence of him, but the reach. Within hours, the elderly diner owner's licensing problem evaporated. The health inspector was quietly reassigned. The man with the phone in the corner booth was followed home, photographed, named, and sent a single text from an unknown number containing his own daughter's school schedule, and the word "don't," and never came back. Dominic did not fire a shot. He simply demonstrated to everyone Ray had leaned on that there was now a heavier weight on the other side of the scale, and that it knew their addresses. But it cost him to show his hand. Every move he made to shield Kara's old world was a move Ray could see a ripple on the water, a confirmation that the great Dominic Vance had suddenly grown protective of something 3 blocks from a roadside diner. And Ray, who collected weakness the way other men collect stamps, understood exactly what protectiveness meant. He knows now, Kara said quietly, watching Dominic across the room. He knows you're shielding me, which means he knows you're the reason he can't find me, which means he'll stop hunting you for a moment and start hunting me to find you. Dominic finished it without flinching. Good. Let him look at me. I'm a much harder thing to look at than you are. No, Kara said, and the old gear machinery in her head was turning fast now, fast and bright. It's not good, it's perfect. Because a man who's busy watching you isn't watching for a trap. Dominic, you just became the loud thing in the room, the thing everyone stares at. And the whole reason I survived 2 years is that I learned how useful it is to be the thing nobody's looking at. She turned to him, and there was something almost like joy in the cold clarity of her face. Let him watch you. Let him pour everything into watching the famous, dangerous, obvious Dominic Vance. While he does nobody is watching the invisible waitress build the room he's going to die in. Act 8. The betrayal. The trap needed one thing. Kara couldn't fake, and couldn't force, and couldn't buy a leak. Ray was far too careful to be lured by a rumor he hadn't sourced himself. He had to find her, had to believe all the way down that he had located her himself through his own patient machine, so that when he finally came, he would come confident and alone, and entirely unprepared for the ground beneath his feet to belong to someone else, which meant the information about where to find her had to reach him through a channel he already trusted. A channel that looked from Ray's side like one of his own. And here was the thing that had been quietly haunting Kara since the night in the parking lot, the question she had been carefully not looking at the way you don't look directly at a son. How had Ray found the blue hour in the first place? She had been so careful. New name, new city, cash, only a car bought through a third party who didn't know her face. She had told no one anything. She had no friends by rigorous design, because a friend is a thread, and a thread is how they pull you home. So how had he found her of all the diners in all the cities, 3 blocks from Dominic Vance's territory, in a place she'd chosen half at random, off a highway exit, because the help wanted sign was already faded? She had told herself it was the machine. Plates, traffic cameras, the relentless grinding luck of a man with the whole apparatus of the law at his back. But Kara was a forensic mind, and forensic minds in the end do not believe in luck. Luck is what you call a source you haven't found yet. So she did what she used to do for a living. She made a list of everyone who had seen her face often enough and close enough for long enough to matter. It was a short list by design. The trucker, no. Gone after a single week, never once asked her name. The regulars, no. She was furniture to them, and furniture is safe. The owner, no. An old man who could barely remember the specials. Marcus, sweet-faced, gospel-humming Marcus, who worked the grill beside her, who had once asked gently where she was from, and she'd given him a careful lie, and he'd smiled and nodded and never asked again, which she had taken at. The time for kindness. Marcus, who had gotten the job 2 weeks after she did. Marcus, who left every single night in a different cousin's car. Marcus, who had been off the only night in 4 months he hadn't closed the exact night Ray's black sedan came rolling into the lot. Marcus, who had once on a slow night saved her a slice of pie and set it down in front of her and said, "Happy birthday, Kara," on a day she had never ever told a living soul was her birthday, because it wasn't Kara's birthday. It was hers, her real one. The one buried in a sealed file that only a man with access to the machine could possibly have pulled. Kara sat very still at the kitchen table at 4 a.m. in the silence of the stone house, while the entire shape of it assembled itself in front of her, like a ledger finally sickeningly balancing. She did not want it to be true. She had loved Marcus a little in the small, undefended way you love anyone who is kind to you during the hardest stretch of your life. He had hummed gospel. He had remembered a birthday she never told him. He had remembered a birthday she never told him. Her hands were shaking, but not with fear. They were shaking with a very specific grief of understanding that the one person at the Blue Hour who had ever been gentle with her had been the entire time the camera in the corner. Ray had planted him 2 weeks after she surfaced the way you'd plant a microphone in a wall. And Marcus had watched her through warm and gentle eyes for 4 full months, learning her habits, confirming her name, marking her birthday in some report, waiting patiently for the order to call it in. She figured it out at 4 a.m, alone in the dark. And she did not tell Dominic. Not because she didn't trust him, but because Dominic, the very instant he knew, would handle it, and a handled Marcus was a dead Marcus, and a dead Marcus was a severed thread. Kara did not need Marcus gone. She needed Marcus useful. He was the leak she had been trying to figure out how to manufacture, already drilled, already installed, already feeding directly into Ray's trusted ear. She didn't have to build a channel to Ray. Ray had been kind enough to build one straight into her own workplace and to staff it with a man who hummed hymns. So she did the coldest, sharpest, most controlled thing she had done in 2 years. The next afternoon, she let Dominic drive her past the Blue Hour to collect the last of her things, and she made very sure that Marcus saw her do it. She made sure he saw the fear she let flicker deliberately across her face. She made sure he saw the duffel bag she clutched a little too tightly. And while she used the diner's tiny bathroom, she left in plain and careless view on the prep counter beside his station a piece of mail with an address on it. An address near the Indiana line. A cabin. Remote. Isolated. A woman planning to hide alone. She fed Marcus the exact lie she needed Ray to swallow whole, and she did it so well, with such a perfect imitation of a frightened woman making a careless mistake, that even Dominic, watching from the car through the rain-streaked window, thought she had simply gone in to say a sad goodbye to an old co-worker. That night back at the stone house, she told him the rest. All of it. Marcus. The birthday. The cabin. The lie she'd planted and the channel she was now using. He went very quiet when she got to Marcus. The dangerous stillness came down over him like a dropped curtain. The lake in winter eyes, and she watched the violence gather in him, slow and certain and absolute. And she crossed the room fast and put her bandaged hand flat against his chest before it could find anywhere to go. "No," she said. "I know exactly what you want to do. Don't. He's not the enemy, he's the wire. If we cut the wire, Ray goes dark and careful, and we lose him into the system for another 2 years, and I go back to a chair under a door handle in another city under another name. But if we leave the wire live, if we let it carry exactly the signal I just sent down it, then Ray walks on his own 2 confident feet straight into the room I'm going to build." She held his furious gaze and did not blink. "I spent 4 months being watched by a man who smiled at me and remembered my birthday. Let me be the one who decides what he sees through those eyes now. Let me turn his own camera around. That's my justice, Dominic, not his blood on your hands. My aim, my ground, my choice." Dominic looked down at the small, steady, bandaged hand pressed flat against his chest, and then up at the woman behind it, the woman the entire world had walked past for 2 years, who had just in the space of a single day out, thought a corrupt detective identified a planted informant everyone else had missed and turned. That betrayal into the load-bearing beam of her own trap. And something in his face that had been frozen solid for 3 years finally completely, irreversibly broke. "God help me," he said very quietly. "I'm in love with you." It did not come out of him as a romantic flourish. It came out the way a man confesses a wound he's been hiding, the way someone admits to a fear so large they've been pretending it wasn't there. And Kara, who had been told "I love you" by Raymond Corsack with his hand closing around her throat, who had learned in the hardest possible school that those 3 words could be a leash, a threat, a cage, heard the very same words land in this, stone house by the Black Lake, and understood all the way down to the floor of herself that they were not the same words at all. The difference was everything. The difference was the whole story. "I know," she said softly. "Help me win first. Then say it again when we're both still alive to mean it, and I'm still standing on my own 2 feet, and I can say it back as a free woman instead of a hunted one. I want the first time I say it back to you to be clean. Give me that. Give me a clean place to stand when I say it." Act 9. The Trap. The cabin near the Indiana line was Kara's stage, and she dressed it the way a forensic accountant builds a case that has to survive a hostile courtroom. Nothing left to chance. Every exit accounted for. Every sightline controlled. Every possible objection answered before it would be raised. It belonged on paper to no one, one of Dominic's cutouts, a property that did not exist in any database Ray could reach into. Dominic's people wired it in a single night. Cameras tucked into the eaves, microphones threaded into the walls, men positioned in the tree line so still and so practiced that Kara, who saw everything, who had built 2 years of survival on seeing everything, lost track of them within an hour and had to be shown where they were. There would be a clean recording. There would be witnesses Ray could not make vanish because they answered to no badge and no city and no machine. That was the entire point. That was Kara's whole thesis. Distilled: take a man who had spent his life hiding inside the machine and pin him somewhere the machine could not reach in to save him. "He'll come tomorrow night," she said, bent over the map spread across the cabin's rough table. "Maybe the night after. Not tonight. Marcus only carried the address up the wire this afternoon, and Ray won't move on a single source he hasn't confirmed himself. He'll sit on the access road first. He'll watch the lights. He'll wait until he's certain, all the way certain, that I'm alone and frightened and exactly the rabbit he remembers." She tapped the single bedroom window. "So we give him certainty. One lamp, one silhouette in the glass. Me, the most reassuring sight in the world to a man like Ray, a woman alone, with no idea the ground's already his to walk in on." "You're not actually going to be standing in that room," Dominic said. It wasn't a question, but there was a plea buried at the bottom of it, the same plea that lived in everything he said about her safety now. "I'm going to be exactly where he can see me, and nowhere on earth he can reach me." She showed him. The bedroom had a second door hidden behind a heavy wardrobe, opening onto a narrow stairwell that dropped to a root cellar that ran out low and cold under the tree line. She'd found it on the first walkthrough. Of course she had. She had spent 2 years memorizing the secret architecture of escape in every building she'd ever stood in. He comes in the front. The second he clears the doorway and starts down the hall, I'm already through the wardrobe and into the cellar. He finds an empty bedroom, 4 of your men, and a camera that's already uploaded 10 minutes of his arrival to 3 places his whole network couldn't touch in a year. By the time Raymond Corsac understands the ground under his feet isn't his ground, it's already finished. He's already convicted himself on tape in a house he thought was empty. Dominic studied the plan for a long time, every line of it the way a man studies a bridge he's about to send something precious across. Then he looked up at her. "You've thought of everything," he said. There was awe in it and there was fear in it. And underneath both there was something that had given up entirely on pretending to be anything other than love. "I've thought of everything for 2 years," she said quietly. "Every building, every exit, every way a careful man comes for you, and every way you slip a careful man. I just never had anywhere to point it. I had all this machinery running in the dark with no target grinding me down from the inside. Now I finally have a target." She held his eyes. "Don't you understand? This is the first night in 2 years that all of it is for something. You keep looking at me like I'm walking toward danger. I'm not. I'm walking toward the end of it. There's a difference, and I need you to be able to see it because I need you steady tomorrow night. Not afraid. Steady." He crossed to her. He caught her hand and pressed it hard to his mouth, not quite a kiss, more like a man bracing himself against something he could not afford to lose his grip on. "Promise me," he said against her fingers, "that the second it goes wrong, the second you run the cellar, and you do not look back. You don't stay to watch. You don't try to talk to him. You don't try to win the conversation. You run the cellar, and you let my men and the cameras do the rest. Promise me that, and I'll be as steady as the stone this house is made of." "I promise," Kara said. And she meant it. She truly, completely meant it in the moment that she said it. But she had not accounted for the one variable that a forensic mind always struggles with, because it cannot be measured or filed or predicted from a ledger, that Raymond Corsac was not only careful, he was cruel. And cruelty, unlike caution, does not follow a plan. Cruelty improvises. Cruelty brings its own surprises to the room. Act 10: The Storm and the Woman in the Grass. Ray came on the second night in the worst storm of the month. The lake had thrown the whole weather system inland, and the rain came sideways, drumming the cabin's roof like fists. And Kara stood at the lit bedroom window in a borrowed coat with her hair down the way she used to wear it before 2 years of hiding a silhouette, a target bait that had chosen its own ground. And she watched the headlights come slow and patient up the muddy access road. Off, then on, then off again. The unhurried, certain creep of a man who had already decided and was simply enjoying the approach. Her heart was steady. She had made it steady. She had spent the whole day making it steady. In her ear, low and tight through the wire sewn into the coat's collar, Dominic's voice. I see him. One car. He's alone. Cellar's clear lights are on down there for you. The second he's through that front door, you move. Not a second after. You move. Copy, she breathed, and her breath did not shake, and she was proud of that, fiercely, stupidly proud of that. The car stopped. The engine died. The door opened, and Raymond Corsac got out into the storm, and even at this distance, even through the sheeting rain, Kara felt the old animal terror try to claw its way up her spine. The specific shape of him, the unhurried rolling walk, the way he tilted his head as he looked up at the single-lit window like a man appraising a piece of property he was already certain he owned and was only deciding how to enjoy. He walked to the front door. He did not knock. Of course he didn't. The door opened. He stepped inside, and Kara turned fast and silent, slid the heavy wardrobe aside on the felt pads she'd glued to its feet for exactly this, and went down into the dark mouth of the cellar precisely as planned. 1 step, 2, 3. Her bad knee holding the braid, trap closing perfectly and silently behind her. And then she heard the thing that was not in the plan, a second voice. Inside the cabin, above her head. She's not here, Ray said, conversational, easy to someone. But you knew that, didn't you? You knew the whole time. You've been a little too helpful, son. A little too good at this. And Marcus's voice, sweet-faced, gospel-humming, Marcus answered, and it was shaking apart. I swear to God, she said this was the place she left the address, right there on the... A sound. Short, wet, final. The kind of sound that Kara had spent 2 years of her life learning to recognize in the dark and would spend the rest of it trying to forget. Ray had brought the wire to the cabin. Ray had brought Marcus. And Ray had just cut his own wire himself, because Ray was always one move further ahead than you thought, because the address had smelled a little too convenient, because a man who collects insurance had decided that if he was walking into something he would walk in, having already erased the one living person who could connect Detective Raymond Corsac to whatever was about to happen in this cabin. The entire plan flipped upside down in a single heartbeat. Marcus wasn't supposed to be here. Marcus, dead on the cabin floor, changed the whole equation because it meant Ray hadn't come merely to find her. He had come knowing it might be a trap, and he had come anyway cleaning house on his way in because a cornered Raymond Corsac did not run. He hunted Kara. Dominic's voice in her ear fast, now the steadiness gone, 3 years of dread compressed into 2 syllables. Move. Get out of the cellar, get to the tree line, my men are moving in now, do not. But Kara had stopped 3 steps down in the dark, because through the rough floorboards above her head, she could hear Ray walking. Slow, certain, toward the wardrobe. He knew the architecture of escape too, of course he did. He was a cop. He had kicked in 100 doors and found 100 hidden rooms behind 100 wardrobes. And he was going to find the cellar, and the moment he came down those stairs into the dark after her, every camera in the eaves and every microphone in the walls and every silent man in the tree line would mean nothing, because the clean recording would show a corrupt detective and a murdered informant. Yes, but it would not, could not show Raymond Corsac confessing to what he had done to a woman named Elena Vance 3 years ago. It would not give Dominic the one thing in the world he needed. And without that confession, Ray walked. The machine would protect him the way it always protected him. He would lawyer the dead informant into a tragedy he'd stumbled upon. He'd lawyer the cameras into an illegal surveillance operation run by a known crime boss. And in 6 months, Kara would see his black sedan in a parking lot in some other city under some other name, with her shoes already on and a chair already under the door, because exposing Ray required Ray to say the words out loud, and Ray in 2 years had never once said the words, unless someone made him. Kara looked down at the cellar stairs, at the dark, at the cold tunnel that ran to the tree line and freedom, and a promise kept. And she looked up at the floorboards, at the slow, certain footsteps crossing toward the wardrobe. And then, God, forgive her, Dominic, forgive her. She could hear him in her ear saying her name like a man drowning. She turned around and she went back up the stairs. She slid the wardrobe aside and stepped out into the lamplight, into the same room as the man who had spent 2 years hunting her. And Raymond Corsac turned and smiled like Christmas morning had come early. "There she is," he said softly, almost tenderly. "There's my girl." Marcus was on the floor between them. Kara did not look down at him. She had loved him a little, and Ray had used that, and she would grieve it later in the daylight when there was room. Right now, she needed every single thing she had for the one reason she had walked back up these stairs, to throw 2 years of careful planning away. "You found me," she said. Her voice did not shake. She had spent 2 years making certain it never would, and tonight, finally, in the worst room of her life, that long, cruel training became a weapon instead of a wound. "I always find you." Ray took an unhurried step. The lamp caught the gun held low and casual in his hand, a man in no hurry whatsoever. "You made me work for it this time, I'll give you that much." Roadside diner, quiet little life. Almost didn't believe it when my boy here called it in. A flat glance down at Marcus. Should have used a smarter dog. "You killed Elena Vance." It was not what he expected her to say, and she watched it land the flicker behind his eyes, the swift internal recalculation, the cop's instinct lifting its head to sniff the changed air. "Don't know the name," he said. "You do." Kara took a step toward him, toward the gun, toward the man, into the bright, unblinking eye of the camera, tucked in the eaves, her heart slamming against her ribs, but her face the calmest it had been in 2 years. 3 years ago. "You made it look like an overdose. You leaned on the medical examiner to falsify the report. And you kept the file, your insurance, your leverage, the folder you keep on everyone, the folder you keep on me, because you never, ever destroy your own leverage. That's your whole religion, Ray. Leverage. You don't kill the evidence, you collect it. It's the only thing that lets a man like you sleep." His face had gone still. The easy Christmas morning smile was gone, wiped clean. And Kara understood she had only a few seconds, maybe less, before he understood why she was making him stand here and hear these things in a lit room. So she did the bravest and most reckless thing of her entire life. She kept talking. Fast, hard, relentless, pinning him in place with the one bait a man like Ray could never resist, swallowing the chance to feel large by making her feel small. "You think you're careful," she said. "You think you're a ghost. You think you're untouchable because you've got the badge and the commendations and 20 years of everyone believing the calm, sad, reasonable version of every story. But I was a forensic accountant before you ever put your hands on me, Ray. That was my job, and I have spent 2 years thinking about exactly one thing: how a man like you operates, where a man like you hides things, how a man like you finally falls. I know there's a cabin in Indiana that isn't in your name. I know that's where the folders are. I know you brought Marcus up here tonight, so there'd be no one breathing who could tie Detective Corsac to whatever you plan to do to me on this floor." She spread her bleeding hands. "You're standing in a room you think is empty." "It is empty," Ray said. But his eyes had begun just slightly to move, telling me exactly what you did to Elena Vance. And to me, and to God knows how many other women you decided no one would ever believe. And here's the part you got wrong, Ray. The part you always got wrong." Kara smiled. It was the first real smile she had worn in 2 years, and it was a terrible thing to see. "You always thought I was the rabbit. You taught me I was the rabbit. You taught me to keep my head down and pour the coffee and make myself invisible, so that no one would ever see what was being done to me." She spread her arms wider into the light. "But I was never the rabbit, Ray. Not once. I was just the thing in the grass that hadn't decided to move yet, and the wardrobe behind her stood open. And the camera in the eaves stayed live. And out in the screaming storm, Dominic Vance's men were already closing on the cabin from the tree line. But more than that, Dominic himself was already coming through the front door, soaked to the bone and silent, and carrying 3 years of grief in his 2 hands. Because the instant Kara had turned around on those cellar stairs, he had started running. And he had heard, through the wire sewn into her collar, every single word she had just pulled out of Raymond Corsac's own mouth. Ray heard the floorboard groan behind him. He spun the gun coming up, and Kara, who had spent her last 2 years learning by heart the exact way this man moved, who knew to the half-second the overconfidence that lived in the center of him, threw the only weapon she had. The lamp and the room dropped into blackness. In the precise instant, Ray fired into the empty space where the silhouette in the window had been. The muzzle flash strobed the room white, and in that frozen sliver of light it showed Dominic already inside, already moving, low and fast and certain. And then there were other men and shouting, and the short, brutal grammar of a fight in the dark, and Kara on the floor with her arms over her head and her heart finally allowing itself to be afraid. When the lights came back up, Raymond Corsac was on his knees on the cabin floor with his own gun, kicked a yard out of reach. 4 of Dominic's men ringed around him, and a camera in the eaves that had recorded every last word of a confession he had been far too arrogant to suspect was being taken. And Dominic Vance stood over him, chest heaving, soaked and shaking. A man standing at the very end of a 3-year road, with murder sitting plainly and patiently in his winter grey eyes. He had every reason. He had every right, by the only law he had ever fully believed in. The man who had murdered his sister was kneeling finally at his feet in a room no machine could reach into. And Kara crossed the floor, bleeding, shaking alive, gloriously impossibly alive, and put her hand on his arm. "No," she said softly. "Not like this. Not blood. You told me you said you wouldn't survive doing it a second time, that there wasn't enough of you left. So don't give him that. Don't let him take the rest of you on his way down." She reached up and turned his face toward her own, away from the man on the floor, made him look at her instead. "We have his confession. We have the cabin. We have his folders, Elena's file in his own handwriting. The thing you've been chasing for 3 years. It's here. It's ours. We don't make him a body that disappears into the machine and becomes a fallen hero with a flag on his coffin. We make him a case the machine can't bury because it's already in 3 places his whole network will never reach." Her thumb moved across his wet cheek. "Let him rot in the daylight, Dominic. Let every single person he hid behind have to stand up in the light and watch him fall. That's worse than a bullet. That's so much worse than a bullet. And it's clean. And it leaves your hands free." Her voice dropped. "It leaves your hands free to hold mine." For one long, terrible, suspended moment, Dominic Vance stood at the exact crossroads between the man he had been for 3 burned-out years and the man this overlooked woman was asking him quietly in a cabin full of his own armed men to become instead. Then he stepped back from Raymond Corsac, and he took Kara's bleeding hand in both of his, and he chose her. Act 11, Daylight. It did not happen overnight. Justice that runs through the machine instead of around it never does. It is slow, and it is grinding, and it is far less satisfying in the moment than a bullet, and it is the only kind that ever truly holds. But the file in Ray's own unmistakable hand and the confession recorded clean and complete in a cabin he had been certain was empty, and the location of the folders that quietly implicated half a network of men who had spent 2 decades believing themselves untouchable. These were not things even Raymond Corsac could make evaporate. Because Kara had made sure the evidence was already everywhere at once. Copied, distributed, held by people who answered to no badge, with simple instructions attached that if anything at all happened to a certain former night shift waitress, every page and every minute of it would go to every newspaper and every federal field office in 3 states. Simultaneously, she had built her last and best trap out of the one single material Ray himself had spent 2 years teaching her to fear above all others' visibility. She had made herself at last a woman who could not safely be touched because her death would now detonate everything he and his whole network had spent their lives burying. The hunted thing had turned around and made herself radioactive. The rabbit had become the one creature in the field that the wolf could not afford to bite. Raymond Corsac was arrested on a Tuesday, in daylight, on the front steps of the very precinct where he had worn his badge for 20 years in front of the men who had saluted him. The network came apart over the following months, one careful thread at a time. A medical examiner, 2 more detectives, a man in the prosecutor's office who had signed off on a great many convenient findings over the years. The cover-up of Elena Vance's murder became eventually, after the long grinding work of it, a headline. Her name, which Dominic had carried face down on a high shelf for 3 silent years, was finally said out loud in a courtroom in the daylight, by people who could no longer make it disappear, attached at last to the word it had always deserved: murder. He turned the photograph face up the night the first indictment came down. Kara found him standing in front of it in the stone house, very still, and she didn't say anything, and neither did he. And they stood there together for a long time, while the lake threw itself against the black coastline outside. To patient and tireless and unchanged. Grief is not a thing you fix. She knew that better than most. But it is a thing you can finally set down, and it is a thing you no longer have to carry alone in the dark. She would have liked you, Dominic said at last. His voice was rough as gravel. Elena, she never liked anyone. He started again. She would have liked you. She'd have told you you were far too good for me. She'd have been right. Kara took his hand. I'm not too good for you, she said. I'm exactly as broken as you are, just in a different shape. That's why it fits. That's the whole reason it fits. He laughed, actually laughed, a startled, rusty, astonished sound that she had never once heard from him, a sound surprised out of a man who had clearly forgotten his body, still knew how to make it, and he pulled her in. And this time, finally, he kissed her. Slowly, asking the whole way, giving her the way he always had from the very first night in the rain, every possible chance to be the one who decided. And Kara, who 2 years ago could not let a man stand between herself and an exit, who had built her entire survival on touching no one and being seen by no one and wanting nothing, wrapped her arms around the most dangerous man in Chicago and decided fully and freely, and on her own 2 feet, to stay. Act 12. The woman everyone sees now. The Blue Hour diner changed hands that spring. Nobody knew the new owner. The neon Blue Hour sign got repaired so that it finally stopped flickering its long bloody red across the wet lot, and the cracked vinyl booth by the window got reupholstered, and the broken back kitchen door, the one anyone could jimmy with, to a butter knife, the one she'd fled through into the rain, on the worst night of her life, got a real lock at last. Sometimes a black SUV parked in that lot, and a tall man in a dark coat sat in the corner booth and drank exactly 1 cup of coffee and watched the door, not because he was waiting for anyone now, but because old habits die, slow and hard, in dangerous men. And because the woman pouring his coffee had admitted once quietly that she liked knowing he was there. Because Kara stayed in Chicago, she kept the diner, bought it in fact with money that was now, after a great deal of complicated and entirely legal paperwork, her own. She didn't keep it because she needed the work or the money or anything it could give her. She kept it because for 2 years that diner had been the place she went to disappear, and she had decided, with the particular stubbornness of a woman who has finally stopped running, that she liked the idea of turning the place where she had vanished into the place where she would become visible instead. She used her real name on the new lease. The first time she had written it down in 2 years. Her hand had shaken as she did it, not with fear this time, but with the strange high vertigo of being at last a person who could be found and looked up and known by name, and was no longer afraid of any of it. She didn't keep her head down anymore. She looked people in the eye, held it even until they were the ones who looked away. She wore short sleeves in July and let the world see the old scar on her wrist, and quietly dared anyone to ask about it. And when they didn't, she discovered with some surprise that she no longer needed them to. The regulars learned her name and used it. The trucker passing back through one night months later called her ma'am and meant it, and tipped in folding money. And on the nights when the storm came in off the lake and the rain hammered the tin roof exactly the way it had the night everything broke open, she would look out the window at the black water, standing in the parking lot, and remember, kneeling in it, bleeding, certain she was at the end and the first man in 2 years who had gotten all the way down into the gutter to look her in the eye. Who did this to you, he'd asked. And the answer in the end had not mattered nearly as much as the question, because the question itself had been the moment somebody finally saw her, and being seen on purpose by someone who then stayed, had turned out to be the exact thing that at long last let her see herself. She closed the diner herself on the last clear night of that first spring. She killed the lights until only the new neon burned steady and red, no flicker anywhere in it. She locked the front door. The front now, always the front, never again the back, and stepped out into a washed clean night, with no rain in it at all, the air rinsed and quiet, and full of the smell of the lake. The black SUV was waiting in the lot. The window came down. Dominic looked at her across the wet asphalt, his winter eyes warm in a way the whole frightened city would have refused to believe possible, and held out his hand, palm up, open the way he had on the very first night. And Kara, who had a real name now, who had a home now, who had a man who would have burned the entire world for her, and had instead at her single quiet word learned how to set it free, walked across the parking lot, unhurried, head up, fully, finally, gloriously visible, and she took it. She wasn't running anymore. She was at last simply walking home, And that's where we leave them, a woman who spent 2 years making herself invisible, finally walking out the front door with her head up, and the most dangerous man in Chicago, waiting in the rain not to own her, but to drive her home. If you made it all the way here with me, thank you for staying. That's the whole reason these stories exist, for the people who want the full journey, the slow burn, the betrayal you didn't see coming, and the moment the woman everyone underestimated finally turns around and becomes the most dangerous person in the room. So, before you go, do me 3 small favors. They genuinely keep this channel alive. Hit that like button if Kara's story got under your skin. It's the single biggest thing that tells the algorithm to put these stories in front of more people who need them, and the more it grows, the longer and more cinematic I get to make these. Share this with one person. That friend who texts you at midnight about dark romance. The one who loves a morally grey man and a woman with a spine of steel. Send it to them right now. Stories like this are better when you've got someone to gasp at the twist with. And drop a comment, I read them all. And I build future episodes straight out of them. Tell me, what was your favorite moment? The kneel in the rain, the lamp going dark, the second she turned around on those cellar stairs and walked back up, and tell me where it lost you or where it grabbed you. That's how the next one gets better. Now here's the part I need your help with. You pick what comes next. In the comments, vote for the woman the world is going to overlook in the next story and the dangerous man who's finally going to see her. Option 1, the surgeon. A trauma surgeon working the night shift in a hospital that's secretly a front for the underworld, and the Mafia boss who's wheeled in dying with only her hands between him and the dark. Option 2, the translator. A stammering, overlooked interpreter dragged into a deal in a neon Tokyo high-rise until the negotiation becomes a shootout, and she does something no one in that room thought she could. Option 3, the seamstress. The invisible woman who sews quietly in the corner of a candlelit mansion where deadly deals are signed, who has been silently planning the downfall of the boss's greatest enemy for years. Comment 1, 2, or 3, whichever woman you want to meet next. The one with the most votes gets written and posted first. And if you're new here, this channel is one promise told 100 different ways, a woman everyone overlooked, and the dangerous man who finally saw her. If that's the kind of story that keeps you up too late, hit subscribe and turn on the bell, because there's a new one every week, and you do not want to miss the next reckoning. Until then, keep your head up. The world's been wrong about quiet women before. I'll see you in the next one.